The divorce papers sat on my kitchen table, like a death sentence, still warm from the printer. 3 months ago, I was Kalantha Price, happily married marketing coordinator with a beautiful daughter and a comfortable suburban life. Now I'm staring at legal documents that could strip away everything I've built, all because of one night that everyone refuses to understand. How did we get here? How did one evening of harmless fun turn into this nightmare, where my own family has turned against me, my friends won't return my calls, and my husband is treating me like a criminal? All I did was dance. All I did was let people know I was approachable, friendly, alive. Is that really so wrong? The house felt different when I walked through the front door at 2:47 a.m. Not just quiet, it was the kind of silence that pressed against your eardrums, heavy with unspoken accusations. I kicked off my heels, wincing as they clattered against the hardwood floor. The sound seemed to echo through our suburban townhouse like gunshots. "Adrien," I called softly, not wanting to wake 7-year-old Isa. No response. The living room was dark except for the blue glow of his phone screen. He sat in his leather recliner, still wearing the khakis and button-down shirt he'd worn to dinner earlier. His financial analyst precision extended to everything, even sitting up, waiting for his wayward wife at 3 in the morning. "Hey, baby," I said, trying to inject some warmth into my voice. "You didn't have to wait up." He didn't look at me, just kept scrolling through whatever was on his phone, his jaw set in that way that meant trouble. Adrien had always been the steady one, the rock of our marriage. In 12 years together, I'd seen him truly angry maybe 5 times. This felt like number 6 brewing. "How was girls' night?" His voice was flat, emotionless, clinical. "Oh, same old thing. Sabine dragged us to that new club downtown, Pulse, I think. The music was too loud and the drinks were overpriced." I was babbling, filling the silence with unnecessary details. "I'm exhausted. Coming to bed?" "In a minute." I hesitated at the bottom of the stairs. Something in his tone made my stomach clench. "Everything okay?" Finally, he looked at me. Really looked at me, taking in my slightly smudged makeup, my hair that had gone from carefully styled to deliberately tousled, the way my black dress clung to curves I'd been working hard to maintain at 34. "Marcus was at Pulse tonight. Marcus Evans, Adrien's coworker." The words hit me like ice water, but I forced my expression to stay neutral. "Oh, really? I didn't see him. It was pretty crowded. He saw you." The way he said it made my mouth go dry, but I'd done nothing wrong. Nothing that couldn't be explained anyway. "Well, I hope you told him I said hi." Adrien's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something shifted in his expression. His lips pressed into a thin line, and when he looked back at me, there was something new in his eyes. Something that looked dangerously close to disgust. "Go to bed, Kalantha." What's that supposed to mean? It means I need some time to think. I wanted to push, to demand an explanation, but the set of his shoulders warned me off. Instead, I climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. In our bedroom, I caught sight of myself in the full-length mirror. I looked good, really good. The kind of good that turned heads and made people notice. The kind of good that reminded everyone, including myself, that I was still desirable, still worth wanting. That wasn't a crime. I changed into pajamas and went through my skincare routine, trying to ignore the sound of Adrien's footsteps pacing the living room below. My phone sat silent on the nightstand. Usually, after a night out, Sabine would be texting play-by-plays and laughing about whatever drama had unfolded. Tonight, nothing. When I finally slipped under the covers, the bed felt enormous. Cold. I lay there listening to the house settle around me, waiting for Adrien to come upstairs, waiting for him to slide in beside me and pull me close the way he had for over a decade. I must have dozed, because the next thing I knew, pale morning light was filtering through our bedroom curtains. The space beside me was empty, the sheets still tucked and neat, Adrien had spent the night downstairs. The smell of coffee drew me to the kitchen, where I found him sitting at our breakfast table, with his laptop open and his phone face down beside his coffee mug. He was already dressed for work in his navy suit, his dark hair perfectly styled. Always so put together, my husband, so controlled. "Morning," I said, trying for normalcy. "Want me to make eggs?" "Already ate." He didn't look up from his screen. Issa bounded into the kitchen then, her blonde hair in tangles and her school uniform wrinkled from sleep. "Mummy, you're up early." "Good morning, sweetheart." I kissed the top of her head, breathing in that little girl smell of strawberry shampoo and innocence. "Ready for school?" "Daddy made my lunch already." She climbed into her chair and started eating the bowl of cereal Adrien had prepared. "Why did you sleep on the couch, Daddy?" My stomach dropped. Adrien finally looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Not anger, that I could handle. This was worse. This was disappointment so profound it made me feel like I was shrinking. "Just had some work to catch up on, Princess," he said to Issa, his voice gentle in a way it hadn't been with me. "Finish your breakfast. We need to leave in 10 minutes. The morning routine continued around me like I was a ghost. Adrien helped Issa gather her backpack and homework folder. He kissed her goodbye and grabbed his briefcase. He was almost to the garage door when I found my voice. "Adrien, wait. We need to talk." He paused, his hand on the doorknob. "I'll be home at 6. We'll talk then." "Can't you just tell me what's wrong? What did Marcus say?" For a moment, I thought he might answer. Instead, he shook his head and walked out, leaving me alone in my kitchen with the lingering scent of his cologne and a growing sense that my carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. I spent the day at my marketing job trying to focus on campaign strategies and client presentations, but my mind kept drifting back to Adrien's expression. The way he'd looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. By lunch, I'd convinced myself he was overreacting. So what if Marcus had seen me dancing? So what if I'd been a little flirtatious? I was a married woman, not a nun. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Sabine. "Everything okay? You left the club pretty suddenly last night." I stared at the message. "Left suddenly?" I'd said goodbye to everyone. Hadn't I? The end of the evening was a little fuzzy, but that was normal after a few drinks and hours of dancing. I typed back, "All good. Adrien's being weird though. Think he's jealous about last night." Her response came quickly. "Men are so insecure. You were just having fun." Just having fun? Exactly. I wasn't the first married woman to enjoy some attention from attractive men, and I wouldn't be the last. Adrien needed to understand that a little harmless flirtation didn't threaten our marriage. If anything, it reminded me how lucky I was to have someone who loved me waiting at home. By the time 6 o'clock rolled around, I'd worked myself into a state of righteous indignation. I was the victim here, not him. I was the one being made to feel guilty for simply being social and confident. When I heard his car in the driveway, I was ready for a fight. But Adrien didn't come in swinging. He walked through the door looking tired, older somehow than he had that morning. He helped Issa with her homework while I made dinner, the two of us moving around each other in careful circles, maintaining the pretense of normalcy for our daughter's sake. It wasn't until after Issa was in bed that he finally spoke. "I saw the video, Kalantha." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What video?" He pulled out his phone and set it on the coffee table between us. The screen showed a paused video, and even though I couldn't make out the details, I could see enough to know it was from inside Pulse. My heart started racing. "Marcus sent this to me this morning, along with about 15 other people apparently." He pressed play, and I watched myself on that small screen, dancing in the center of a crowd. But it wasn't just dancing. The camera caught everything. The way I'd pressed myself against Jessie Parr, our mutual friend and personal trainer. The way I'd thrown my head back and laughed when his hand slid down my sides. The way I'd turned to face him, My body molded against his, moving in ways that left nothing to the imagination. And then I heard my own voice, slightly slurred but unmistakably mine. "Anyone can touch me tonight. I'm not made of glass." The video ended. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. "It was just dancing," I said finally. "Just dancing." His voice was flat again, but underneath I could hear the hurt. "Is that what you call it when another man has his hands all over my wife? When you're grinding against him like you're trying to have sex on the dance floor? You're being dramatic. It was crowded. People were dancing close to each other. That's what happens at clubs. And the part where you announced that anyone could touch you." Heat flooded my cheeks. I was drunk. People say stupid things when they're drunk. "So you admit it was stupid?" "I admit the phrasing was poor, but you're acting like I committed adultery. I danced with a friend. That's it." Adrien leaned back in his chair, studying me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "Do you hear yourself right now? Do you have any idea how this makes me feel?" "How it makes you feel?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "What about how I feel? What about the fact that you're treating me like a criminal because I had fun for one night? What about the fact that you're choosing to believe the worst possible interpretation of an innocent situation?" "Innocent?" He repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "Kalantha, half our friends were at that club. Half our friends saw you, behaving like that. With Jessie." "Behaving like what? Like a woman who's confident in her own skin? Like someone who doesn't need her husband's permission to dance? Like someone who forgot she was married?" The accusation hung in the air between us. I wanted to deny it, to explain that I'd never forgotten, not for a second. But the truth was more complicated than that. For those few hours at Pulse, I hadn't been Adrien's wife or Issa's mother, or a mid-level marketing coordinator pushing 35. I'd been Kalantha, just Kalantha, and it had felt incredible. "I never forgot I was married," I said quietly. "Then explain to me how this happened. Explain to me how my wife ends up in a viral video telling strangers they can put their hands on her." "It's not viral, don't be ridiculous." Adrien's phone buzzed. Then again. Then a third time in rapid succession. He glanced at the screen and something shifted in his expression. "What?" I demanded. He turned the phone toward me. Text after text was rolling in from numbers I didn't recognize. Screenshots of the video, comments, reactions. My stomach turned as I read message after message, each one more humiliating than the last. "Oh God." "It's been shared 43 times in the last 6 hours, Adrien said quietly. 43 times, Kalantha. Our neighbors have seen it. People from your work, Issa's teachers." The room started spinning. This couldn't be happening. It was supposed to be one night, one moment of feeling alive and wanted and free. It wasn't supposed to follow me home. "We can fix this," I said desperately. "We can explain." "Explain what? That my wife gets drunk and lets other men grope her in public? That she announces her availability to a room full of strangers? What exactly would you like me to explain?" "You're twisting everything. You're making it sound so much worse than it was." "I'm not making it sound like anything. I'm watching a video of my wife's behavior and trying to understand how we got here." I stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, our neighborhood looked exactly the same as it had that morning. Same manicured lawns, same security lights casting pools of yellow on the sidewalks. But everything felt different now. Tainted. "So, what happens now?" I asked without turning around. "I don't know." "Are you going to leave me? Over one stupid night?" The silence stretched so long I finally turned to look at him. Adrien was staring at his hands, his wedding ring catching the light from the table lamp. "I don't know," he repeated. That night, he slept on the couch again. The next morning brought a new kind of hell. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 42 text messages. My phone had been buzzing all night like an angry hornet, but I'd turned it face down and tried to ignore it. Now, in the harsh light of day, I couldn't avoid reality any longer. The first message was from my boss, Janet. Need to see you in my office first thing. This is urgent. My stomach dropped. I scrolled through the rest. Friends, acquaintances, even people I barely knew, all wanting to know if I'd seen the video. Some were sympathetic, others judgmental, but all of them confirmed my worst fear. This thing had spread far beyond our immediate circle. Sabine had texted at 3 a.m. Cal, people are being really nasty about this. Maybe stay off social media for a while. Too late for that advice. I opened Instagram and immediately wished I hadn't. Someone had tagged me in the video, and the comments were brutal. Desperate housewife, read one. Poor husband, said another. This is why I don't trust married women at clubs. Each comment felt like a slap. These people didn't know me. They didn't know my marriage, my life, the context of that night. They were judging me based on 30 seconds of video, reducing 12 years of marriage and motherhood to one moment of poor judgment. I screenshot the worst comments, planning to show Adrien how unfairly I was being treated. Surely he could see that the real problem wasn't my behavior, it was everyone else's overreaction to it. At work, the whispers started the moment I walked through the lobby. Conversation stopped when I passed, then resumed in hushed tones behind me. By the time I reached Janet's office, my hands were shaking. Close the door, she said, without looking up from her computer. Janet Morrison was 55, twice divorced, and had built our marketing firm from nothing through sheer determination and an intolerance for drama. She'd been my boss for 3 years, and I'd always respected her directness. Today, that directness felt like a threat. I'm going to assume you know why you're here, she said, finally meeting my eyes. If this is about the video, it's about the video. It's about the fact that our biggest client called me at home last night, asking if we employ that woman from the club. It's about the fact that your behavior is now associated with our company brand. Heat flooded my cheeks. What I do in my personal time has nothing to do with my job performance. Normally, I'd agree with you, but when your personal time goes viral and reflects poorly on the company, it becomes my problem. Janet leaned back in her chair. Kalantha, you're a good employee. Your work is solid, your clients generally like you. But this is a mess. So, what are you saying? I'm saying you need to clean this up, fast, issue a public apology, take responsibility for your actions, and pray it blows over quickly. Because if it doesn't, if this continues to impact our business relationships, I'll have to consider other options. Other options, meaning termination. The threat was clear, even if she didn't say it directly. I understand, I managed. Good. Take today to figure out your response strategy. I want to see a draft of your public statement before you post anything. I spent the rest of the morning crafting what I thought was a reasonable response. I acknowledged that my behavior had been misinterpreted and apologized for any confusion it had caused. I emphasized my commitment to my family and asked for privacy during this difficult time. But when I showed the draft to Janet, she shook her head immediately. This reads like a non-apology. You're not taking responsibility. You're blaming everyone else for misunderstanding you. Try again. The second draft was harder to write. It required admitting that my behavior had been inappropriate, that I'd made poor choices, that I was sorry for the hurt I'd caused. Every word felt like swallowing glass, but I needed this job. I needed some stability while my personal life imploded. I posted the statement on all my social media accounts and waited for the response. It was mixed at best. Some people appreciated the apology, but others saw it as too little, too late. The video kept getting shared, my statement lost in the noise of public judgment. That evening, Adrien came home with takeout Chinese food and the same exhausted expression he'd worn that morning. We ate dinner with Issa, maintaining the pretense that everything was normal, but I could see the strain in his face. The way he avoided looking directly at me. The way he answered Issa's questions about his day with forced enthusiasm. After Issa went to bed, I tried to show him my public apology. I took responsibility, I said, holding out my phone. I apologize publicly. Isn't that what you wanted? He read it without comment, then handed the phone back to me. It's a start, he said finally. A start. What else do you want from me, Adrien? I've been humiliated at work, attacked online, forced to grovel publicly for something that was blown completely out of proportion. What more do you need? I need to understand why it happened in the first place. I told you. You told me you were drunk and made poor choices. But that doesn't explain the why, Kalantha. It doesn't explain how you got to a place where announcing your availability to a room full of strangers seemed like a good idea, drunk or not. I stared at him, searching for the right words. How could I explain the feeling of being invisible in my own life? The way motherhood and marriage had slowly erased pieces of me until I sometimes forgot who I was outside of those roles. The intoxicating rush of being seen, really seen, as a desirable woman instead of just someone's wife and mother. I felt alive, I said finally. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. And who is that self? Because the woman I married wouldn't have done what you did. People change, Adrien. I'm not the same person I was at 22. No, he said quietly. You're not. The next few days brought new humiliations. Isa's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, called to say that some of the other parents had been talking, and it might be best if I skipped the upcoming parent-teacher conferences. Just until things settled down, she said diplomatically. My mother called from Phoenix, her voice tight with disappointment. Judith saw the video on Facebook, she said, referring to my mother-in-law. She's very upset, Kalantha, very upset. It's not as bad as it looks, I insisted, but even I was getting tired of that refrain. It looks like you forgot you had a family, Mom said bluntly. It looks like you were advertising yourself to strangers. How do you think that makes Adrien feel? How do you think it makes Isa feel when her friends' parents are talking about her mother? The worst part was that I was starting to see their point. Not about the severity of my actions, I still believed everyone was overreacting, but about the consequences. I hadn't considered how this would affect Isa, how it would follow her to school and into her friendships. I hadn't thought about how it would impact Adrien's reputation at work or our standing in the community. I'd been selfish. But was being selfish for one night really such an unforgivable sin? On Thursday, exactly 1 week after the club incident, I was grabbing coffee before work when I ran into Tasha Lynn, Jesse's girlfriend. I'd been hoping to avoid this confrontation, but there she was in line ahead of me, her dark hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, her expression thunderous. Kalantha. She turned to face me, and I could see the anger radiating from her petite frame. We need to talk. Tasha, hi. Look, about the other night. About the other night when you were all over my boyfriend. About the night you made it clear to everyone in that club that you were available for touching. Her voice was loud enough that other customers were starting to stare. I felt my face burn with embarrassment. It wasn't like that. We were just dancing. Jesse and I have been friends for years. Friends don't grind on each other in public. Friends don't make announcements about being touchable. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a furious whisper. You humiliated me. You humiliated your husband. And for what? A few minutes of attention from men who don't even know your name. You're overreacting. Am I? Because Jesse won't even talk to me about it. He's so embarrassed by the whole thing that he's pretending it never happened. But I saw the video, Kalantha. We all saw it. She grabbed her coffee and pushed past me toward the door, then turned back one more time. Stay away from my boyfriend, and maybe figure out why you need so much attention from other people's men when you have a perfectly good husband at home. The confrontation left me shaking. I sat in my car in the coffee shop parking lot, trying to compose myself before work. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw you at Starbucks. Still making scenes, I see. Someone had been watching. Someone had seen Tasha confront me and was now commenting on it like I was some kind of public entertainment. The realization that I was being observed, judged, documented everywhere I went made me feel sick. That night, I tried calling Jesse, We needed to get our story straight, present a united front about what had really happened. But his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried again an hour later. Same thing. Finally, around 10 p.m., he texted back, "Can't talk right now. Tasha's really upset. Need some space to figure this out." Space. Everyone needed space from me now. My husband was sleeping on the couch. My daughter's teacher was asking me to stay away from school events. My friends were maintaining careful distance. And now, even the man who'd been dancing with me that night wanted nothing to do with me. I was becoming radioactive, toxic to everyone around me. And the worst part was, I still didn't understand why. I still couldn't see how 30 seconds of dancing had warranted this level of social destruction. But as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling and listening to Adrien moving around downstairs, I began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, everyone else could see something I couldn't. The call from Issa's school came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly marketing reports. Mrs. Rodriguez's voice was carefully professional, but I could hear the underlying concern. "Mrs. Price, I was wondering if you could come in for a quick chat about Issa. Nothing serious, but I think it would be beneficial for all of us to touch base." My stomach clenched. "Is she in trouble?" "Not at all. Issa's a wonderful student, but she's been different lately. Quieter, more withdrawn. I think the situation at home might be affecting her more than you realize." The situation at home. Even Issa's teacher was being diplomatic about my public humiliation. I agreed to come in that afternoon, then spent the rest of the morning dreading the conversation. Mrs. Rodriguez was waiting for me in her classroom, surrounded by the cheerful chaos of second-grade artwork and motivational posters. She was younger than me, maybe 28, with kind eyes and the sort of gentle manner that made children trust her instantly. Today, those kind eyes held a mixture of sympathy and concern that made me want to disappear. "Thank you for coming in," she said, gesturing to one of the tiny plastic chairs beside her desk. "I wanted to talk to you about some changes I've noticed in Issa's behavior." "What kind of changes?" "She's been much quieter during group activities. Yesterday, during sharing time, Tommy Miller asked her why her mom was famous on the internet. Issa didn't know how to respond, and she spent the rest of the day looking upset." The words hit me like a physical blow. 7-year-old Tommy Miller had seen the video. Or more likely, his parents had seen it and discussed it within earshot of their child. Now, my daughter was facing questions at school about something she couldn't possibly understand. "What did you tell her?" I asked. I redirected the conversation and spoke privately with Tommy about appropriate topics for sharing time. "But Kalantha, this isn't going away. The other parents are talking, and children pick up on these things. Issa knows something is wrong at home, and now she's hearing whispers at school too." I felt tears prick my eyes. She's not supposed to be affected by this. She's just a child. She is just a child, but she's a child who loves her parents and can sense when they're in distress. Has she talked to you about any of this? "No. We've been trying to keep things normal for her." Mrs. Rodriguez nodded sympathetically. "I understand the impulse to protect her, but children often know more than we think they do. It might be worth having an age-appropriate conversation about the fact that families sometimes go through difficult periods." I left the school feeling like I'd been hollowed out. The drive home was a blur of suburban streets and stop signs, my mind replaying Mrs. Rodriguez's gentle words over and over. Issa was suffering because of my choices. My 7-year-old daughter was being questioned by classmates about something that should never have touched her world. At home, I found myself really looking at Issa for the first time in days. She was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, her blonde head bent over a worksheet about addition and subtraction. She looked so small, so innocent, so completely undeserving of being dragged into adult drama. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, sitting down beside her. "How was school today?" "Okay." She didn't look up from her math problems. "Just okay? Nothing exciting happen?" She shrugged, erasing an answer and writing in a new number. Tommy was being weird again. My heart clenched. Weird how? He keeps asking me questions about you and Daddy, like why Daddy sleeps on the couch now, and he said his mom saw you on her phone. I took a deep breath, trying to figure out how to navigate this conversation. Sometimes grown-ups go through difficult times, baby. It doesn't mean anything is wrong with you, and it doesn't mean we love you any less. Finally, she looked up at me. Her blue eyes, so much like Adrien's, were filled with a worry no 7-year-old should carry. Are you and Daddy getting divorced? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Why would you ask that? Because that's what happened to Emma's parents. First her dad slept on the couch, then they had lots of quiet talks, then he moved out. I pulled her into my lap, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Daddy and I are working through some problems, but that doesn't mean we're getting divorced. Sometimes adults need to figure things out, just like sometimes you need to figure out problems with your friends. But you still love each other? The question hung in the air. Did we still love each other? I loved the man Adrien had been, the life we'd built together, the family we'd created. But the way he looked at me now, the careful distance he maintained, the disappointment in his voice when he spoke to me, that didn't feel like love. That felt like tolerance at best. We're working on it, I said finally. That evening, after Issa was in bed, I tried to talk to Adrien about the school meeting. He listened without comment as I described Mrs. Rodriguez's concerns and Issa's questions about divorce. She's scared, I said. She thinks you're going to leave. Maybe I am. The words were said so quietly I almost missed them. When they registered, I felt something cold settle in my chest. What does that mean? Adrien was sitting in his usual spot on the couch, still dressed in his work clothes, even though it was past 9 p.m. He looked exhausted, older than his 36 years. It means I've been doing a lot of thinking this week, about us, about what I want, about whether this marriage can survive what happened. It was one night, Adrien, one mistake. Was it a mistake? Because from where I'm sitting, it looked like a choice. It looked like you chose to behave that way, chose to disrespect our marriage, chose to humiliate me in front of our friends. I never meant to humiliate you, but you did. And now I have to figure out whether I can live with that, whether I can trust you again, whether I can look at you without seeing that video. The pain in his voice was unmistakable. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I started to understand the depth of damage I'd caused. This wasn't just about one night of dancing. This was about trust, respect, the fundamental assumptions that hold a marriage together. I can earn your trust back, I said desperately. I can prove to you that it was an aberration, a moment of stupidity that will never happen again. How? How do you prove something like that? I don't know, but I'll figure it out. I'll do whatever it takes. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. I spoke to a lawyer today. The words hit me like ice water. You what? I needed to understand my options, understand what divorce would look like, what it would mean for Issa, for our finances. You're really considering leaving me over this? I'm considering leaving you because I don't know who you are anymore. The woman I married wouldn't have done what you did. She wouldn't have put our family at risk for a few minutes of attention from strangers. People change, Adrien. We both have. You're not the same person you were 12 years ago either. No, I'm not, but I'm still someone who respects our marriage. I'm still someone who considers how my actions might affect my wife and daughter before I make decisions. The accusation stung because it was true. I hadn't thought about them that night. I'd thought about myself, about feeling alive and desired and free. I'd been selfish in a way that was apparently unforgivable. So what happens now? I asked. Now I decide whether this marriage is worth saving. He stood up, gathering his pillow and the blanket he'd been using on the couch. I'm going to stay at my mother's for a few days. I need some space to think clearly. What do I tell Issa? Tell her I'm traveling for work. Tell her whatever you need to tell her to keep her from being more hurt by this than she already has been. He was almost to the stairs when I found my voice again. Adrien, wait, please. We can work through this. We can get counseling. We can... Kalantha. He turned back to me and the look in his eyes was devastating. I love you. I've loved you for 15 years. But I don't like you very much right now. And I don't know if that's something we can fix. After he left, I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by the debris of our life together. Family photos on the mantel, Issa's artwork on the refrigerator, the couch where we'd spent countless evenings watching movies and talking about our days. Everything looked the same, but it all felt hollow now, like a movie set after the cameras stopped rolling. I called Sabine, needing to hear a friendly voice. "How are you holding up?" she asked, and I could hear the sympathy in her tone. "Adrien's leaving. He's staying at his mother's." "Oh, Cal, I'm so sorry, but maybe some space is good. Maybe he just needs time to cool off and get some perspective." He talked to a lawyer, Sabine. This isn't about cooling off. This is about him deciding whether our marriage is over. It's not over. You guys have been together too long, been through too much. This will blow over. Will it? Because it feels like it's getting worse every day. Issa's teacher wants to talk about how this is affecting her. People at work are treating me like I have a contagious disease. Jesse won't even return my calls. Jesse's dealing with his own drama. Tasha's been making his life hell about the whole thing. "So you've talked to him?" There was a pause. "A little. He's really sorry about how everything played out. He never meant for it to get this out of hand. None of us did. It was supposed to be one night of fun. I know, and I feel partially responsible. I'm the one who dragged you to that club, who encouraged you to let loose a little." It was the first time anyone had acknowledged that I wasn't entirely to blame for what happened. The relief of hearing someone take even partial responsibility was overwhelming. "It's not your fault," I said. "I made my own choices. Bad choices, maybe, but not unforgivable ones. Adrien will come around. He loves you too much to throw away your marriage over one stupid night." After we hung up, I felt marginally better. Sabine was right. Adrien and I had too much history to let this destroy us. We'd weather this storm like we'd weathered others. We'd find a way back to each other. But as I climbed the stairs to our empty bedroom, I couldn't shake the memory of the look in his eyes when he'd said he didn't like me very much. That wasn't the look of a man who was temporarily angry. That was the look of a man who was fundamentally disappointed in who I'd turned out to be. And maybe, if I was being honest with myself, he had good reason to be. Miriam Price had always been a formidable woman. At 62, Adrien's mother possessed the kind of quiet authority that came from raising 3 children as a single parent after her husband's early death. She was elegant, well-spoken, and had never particularly warmed to me, though she'd been unfailingly polite throughout our marriage. When she called and asked to meet for coffee, I knew it wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. "The grind at 2 o'clock, she said in her crisp voice. "I think it's time we had a talk." I spent the morning dreading the meeting, changing outfits 3 times and practicing what I would say. Miriam had always intimidated me slightly. She was everything I wasn't. Composed, dignified, never a hair out of place or a word spoken in anger. If I was going to salvage my marriage, I needed her on my side. The Grind was a small coffee shop downtown, the kind of place that served overpriced lattes to business professionals and stay-at-home mums. I arrived 5 minutes early and chose a table in the back corner, hoping for some privacy. Miriam walked in exactly at 2 o'clock, wearing a navy blazer and pearls, her silver hair perfectly styled. "Kalantha." She sat down across from me without removing her jacket. No hug, no small talk, just straight to business. "Mrs. Price, thank you for meeting with me. I think under the circumstances, we're past formalities. Call me Miriam." She folded her hands on the table. "I assume you know why I wanted to talk." "I imagine it's about the video." "It's about more than the video. It's about what that video represents. It's about the fact that my son is sleeping in his childhood bedroom because he can't bear to be in the same house as his wife. The words stung, but I forced myself to remain calm. I know Adrien is upset. We're working through it. Are you? Because from where I sit, it looks like you're minimizing what happened and expecting him to get over it. That's not, I started to protest, but she held up a hand. I've seen the video, Kalantha. Sabine showed it to me yesterday. My blood ran cold. Sabine had shown the video to Miriam. My own sister had betrayed me to my mother-in-law. She was concerned, Miriam continued, concerned about the things you've been saying, the way you've been characterizing what happened. What do you mean? Miriam pulled out her phone and set it on the table between us. She showed me your text conversations, the ones where you call Adrien controlling and paranoid, the ones where you say he's overreacting and that you were just having fun. I stared at the phone, feeling betrayed and exposed. Those texts had been private, venting sessions between sisters. Sabine had no right to share them with anyone, let alone Adrien's mother. Those were private conversations, I said weakly. Private conversations where you show absolutely no remorse for what you did. Private conversations where you blame everyone except yourself for the consequences of your actions. I do feel remorse. Do you? Because according to these messages, you feel like a victim. You feel like everyone is being unfair to you. You feel like your husband should just get over it and move on. Miriam's voice was steady, controlled, but I could hear the anger underneath. This was a woman who had raised her son to be honorable, respectful, committed, and I had humiliated him publicly. I made a mistake, I said. One mistake in 12 years of marriage. Doesn't that count for anything? It might if you actually acknowledged it was a mistake instead of calling it misunderstood and taken out of context. She pressed play on a video, and suddenly I was watching myself again, but this time I was seeing it through Miriam's eyes, through the eyes of a woman who valued dignity and discretion above all else. The dancing looked crude, desperate. The way I pressed myself against Jessie looked calculated, performative, and my voice, announcing my availability to the room, sounded slurred and reckless. "This is who you chose to be that night," Miriam said quietly. "Not for 5 minutes, not in one moment of poor judgment, for hours. You chose to behave this way for hours, in front of people who know your family." I was drunk. Adrien walked in, carrying an unfamiliar briefcase, his face neutral but heavy with resolve. "We need to talk," he said. "Being drunk doesn't change who you are, Kalantha. It removes inhibitions. It lets you do what you truly want." Miriam's words echoed in my mind as he opened the briefcase, revealing legal documents. "I've filed for separation. Divorce follows if we can't agree." I begged for understanding, but he was calm, exhausted. "This isn't one night. It's months of choices. Flirting, pursuing attention, disrespecting our marriage and Issa." Tears came. My sister had betrayed me. My mother-in-law condemned me. Strangers harassed me. Alone, exposed, I faced the truth. I had chosen desire over family. Adrien's eyes held no anger, only finality. "Sign or we go to court. For Issa's sake, make this clean." The papers waited like a verdict. My marriage hung in the balance, and for the first time, excuses failed me. Issa had already left for school, leaving the house unnaturally quiet. Adrien set his briefcase on the coffee table and faced me. "I've made some decisions," he said. He opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick folder of legal documents. "I've filed for legal separation. Divorce proceedings will follow if we can't agree." The words struck like a blow. I begged for counseling, but he was calm, resolute. For 2 weeks, I'd offered excuses instead of remorse. He showed me printouts, my flirty text to Jessie, social media posts, gym security footage of me interrupting Jessie's sessions, touching his arm, leaning too close. "You were hunting him for months," Adrien said. "The club wasn't an accident. It was escalation." Jessie had confirmed the pattern, His girlfriend had warned him off long before. Adrien's pain was raw. Colleagues seeing the video, whispers about his family. You announced your availability to strangers while grinding on another man. Tears fell, but his expression stayed firm. He revealed a custody proposal, primary to him, supervised visits for me. I'm protecting Issa from the chaos you created. Devastated, I asked for time. He gave me until 5 p.m. the next day. At the law office the following afternoon, I faced him across the conference table. You were right, I said. I pursued Jessie. I craved attention, felt bored as a wife and mother. I chose excitement over our family. I was selfish, cruel. I destroyed us because I couldn't value what I had. I signed the separation agreement, not because it felt fair, but because it was deserved. I'm truly sorry for betraying you, for hurting Issa, for everything. Adrien's voice thickened. Thank you for finally saying it. It doesn't change anything, but it helps. Months later, in my small studio apartment, I unpacked slowly. Therapy with Dr. Martinez forced me to confront my addiction to external validation. You use desire like a drug, she said. Now learn to find worth inside yourself. Issa's first overnight visit felt sacred. We made pancakes, watched movies, cooked together. You're still my mom, she told me. You made mistakes, but you're trying. I'd lost my marriage, home, reputation, but I hadn't lost her completely. Adrien remained civil, prioritizing co-parenting. Running into Jessie at the grocery store brought awkward apologies. I accepted mine were my own. My life was smaller, lonelier, harder, but honest. I was rebuilding, one painful step at a time, learning that being enough for my daughter, and slowly for myself, was worth more than any fleeting attention ever could be. The woman who once begged strangers to touch her had finally learned the cost. And in the quiet aftermath, she was beginning to heal.